Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to our events of our third session of our first day of the Knowledge Summit 2019. So, managing knowledge and sustainable development is our theme for this session. Hosting our media expert from Ron Young from the Knowledge Institution International, Hamad Al-Handel Engineering Knowledge and Resource Division, Head Saudi Aramco, Nicholas Turner, Managing Director, Lindo Nobel Laureate Meetings, with the moderator Amira Mohammed, journalist and presenter, Abu Dhabi TV. I'd like to ask our speakers to join us on stage for our third session, Knowledge Management and Sustainable Development.
Ladies and gentlemen, our guest speakers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good afternoon. I am Amira Mohammed, a TV presenter in Abu Dhabi TV, and I would like to welcome you all to our session, Knowledge Management and Sustainable Development. Today, we will be discussing how to apply a reliable knowledge and create knowledge culture, how the role of technology could help us in addressing challenges in knowledge sustainability, and of course, the importance of exchanging knowledge from Nobel Laureates and young scientists. So, what we will be discussing today is a life-changing information for one's organization and community. So I recommend you not just to listen, but prepare yourself with a pen and get a piece of paper to take some notes, because knowledge that we will be discussing and talking about is really worth it. But before we begin, let me introduce our guest speakers. I will start with Mr. Ron Young. He's the founder of Knowledge Associates International, an international group of management consulting companies with headquarters in Cambridge, UK. He is a leading international expert in knowledge and innovation management, specializing in knowledge-driven results for organizations. He specializes in developing policies, governance models, standards, knowledge strategies, knowledge systems, and knowledge-driven platforms. And of course, I would like also to introduce Dr. Hamad Al-Mahdal Al-Sagour. He is the head of Saudi Aramco's Engineering Knowledge and Resources Division, leading 3 corporate functions which collectively serves as the hub for Saudi Aramco knowledge: engineering standards management, engineering drawings management, and knowledge management. He also led the technology management division on several occasions, overlooking technology deployment and innovation in the organization. And of course, right now, I would like to welcome as well and introduce Mr. Nicholas Turner, is Managing Director and member of the Executive Board of the Foundation Lindo Nobel Laureate Meetings. Since 2009, Mr. Nicholas, in his capacity, has focused on the development of the mission education, the internationalization of the Lindo Nobel Laureate meetings and their participants, and on securing the independence of the internationally recognized forum. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me welcoming all our guest speakers. But to begin with, I would like to ask Mr. Nicholas Turner to give present his presentation to us.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have the great pleasure to introduce the Lindo Nobel Laureate meetings to you, and what we are doing in the aspect of knowledge transfer. I just go over that. And I just want to show you that these meetings take place, and I think it's the wrong presentation, but nevertheless, these meetings take place since 1951 and bring together Nobel laureates from different disciplines of the Nobel Prize, which is physics, chemistry, medicine, and economics, in alternating years with young scientists from around the world. So we have about young scientists, about 600 to 650 young scientists from 90 countries that come together in Lindau for interaction and knowledge transfer. And it's not only the knowledge transfer from the Nobel laureates to the young scientists, but also among the young scientists. So in Lindau, they really get the opportunity to start a network that is globally and hopefully lasting for a lifetime. I just want to show you a few pictures. So it started in 1951, so we have a long history of scientific exchange, as you can imagine. In Lindau, there are the rock stars of science, not so much known to the whole community, but in the science they are known as football or musicians or so. So they come together, and there you can see the very informal setting. This is Liz Blackburn discussing with young scientists. Bruce Beutler. We have the leitmotif, educate, inspire, connect. And educate is quite often from the Nobel laureate to the young scientist, but also backwards, so it's both ways. Inspire is to get the young scientists understand what makes a life in science. As you can imagine, it's not really only very fancy. You need to be desperate about finding out some things. You need to be to endure even the failures during a long time of as a scientist. There might be 1,000 or 100,000 of failures before you get the one idea that then opens your eyes. So, and then there's the connect, and you can see it here, the creation of unique and lasting networks, and that's really among the young scientists mainly. When there are panel discussions, challenging issues of research and socio-political topics that are mentioned, we have science walks. So we really try to have a very colorful program and format. So science walks, here you can see a Nobel laureate on a walk with young scientists. We have science breakfast, so it starts very early in the morning and it lasts till late at night. On the last day, Lindau is a medieval island on Lake Constance. It's in the very south of Germany, so you can reach it from Zurich, Munich, or Stuttgart. And on the last day, we have a boat trip to Mainau Island, and that's not only important because it's a wonderful setting, it's also important because the Count Bernadotte, who was the great uncle of the Swedish king, he was one of our co-founders, and they live, the Bernadotte family live on Mainau Island, so it's the invitation to their home. Then we have an overall concept of different aspects that are part of our knowledge transfer. It's the annual meetings, it's exhibitions, it's the mediathek on the website where everybody really can get access to lectures of more than 100 years of science. And some long-standing supporters, I just want to show. Bill Gates has been in Lindau, the German Chancellor, of course, but also from other countries, Pamela Mars from the Mars family in the US. So I go over that. It's not necessary. That's another project we have, science sketches of science, an exhibition that started at the Nobel Museum in Stockholm, and we are touring the world with these paintings or drawings by Nobel laureates where they are asked by a science journalist to show what they got the Nobel Prize for. So you can see Stephen Chu, the Nobel laureate in physics and former Secretary of Energy in the first term of Obama. That's another project of ours, the Nobel Heroes. They are portraits of Nobel laureates that are done by Peter Badke. And there you can see an exhibition, and again we are touring the world and try to get people interested in the idea of Nobel laureates and the people behind the prize. That's the picture of our, that's the picture of our, of the Mediathek, so everybody can see the lectures also on the web. And the last project is the Nobel Labs 360, where you can go into the labs of Nobel laureates. It's also web-based, and this is John Martha, who works with the NASA. And it's really fascinating to see how they work and what they do. That's the alumni world all over the world, and that's, as it's an ongoing dialogue, the next meetings are in June 2020, and I think now we get started. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nicholas Turner, for letting us know more about Lindo Nobel Laureate meetings. Thank you very much. And now, as we start our panel discussions, I would like to start with Mr. Ron Young. And Mr. Ron, what are the knowledge assets? You wrote a book about that. And why you consider knowledge asset management as a key?
Okay, knowledge assets. First of all, if we talk about knowledge, we're looking at knowledge for sustainable development. We're looking for knowledge management for sustainable development. And to do that, we have to recognize that knowledge is far, far more than a resource. It is a key asset. Some people, like me, will argue that knowledge is the key asset. It's the key factor of production. It's the key factor of development. And we have to treat knowledge as a valuable asset, not just something to improve operationally. And the big difference between that is a knowledge asset can transform an organization's work. If we just look at improving our knowledge on a day-to-day basis, that's very, very good. That's essential. That's good operational knowledge management. We can do that more collectively. We can do that more systematically than ever before. But knowledge assets is taking that even further to say not only can we continuously improve, but we can transform the way we're working, because assets, whether they're physical or intangible, tangible or intangible, assets have value. Assets have a life cycle. Assets, we can earn income. Assets are something that we need to look at, and our mindset at the moment, our culture, is more towards treating knowledge as a resource than it is about treating knowledge as a transformative asset. That's what knowledge asset management is all about, to achieve the objectives.
To achieve your objectives. That's right. Thank you, Dr. Ron. To move on with Dr. Hamid, talking about the knowledge management assets, and let's talk about the main pillars for implementing a successful and sustainable knowledge management. What are they? What are the main pillars that we need for KM program in one's organization?
Thank you, Amira. Do you hear me? Okay. One word first in Arabic, if you allow me.
تفضل.
بس أتقدم بالتعزئة
I would like to send my condolences to His Highness Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan and His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum for the death of Sultan bin Zayed. May God bless his soul.
I was speaking to Ron a few minutes back. We had some discussion today morning when he delivered his presentation about the new ISO standard. Knowledge management is a holistic approach. It's really hard to say that I will focus on some aspects of the knowledge management and say this is what's going to make it or break it. Knowledge management consists of a few aspects or pillars, as you explained. The effort starts by really defining a vision for the company or for the organization on what they want to achieve out of this program and what are their strategies that they plan to implement to reach their vision or desired state. Following that, they need to focus on several aspects. First one is what we call in some of the oil and gas sectors as the people part, which consists of the governance needed for people to follow and implement the knowledge management program across the organization or across the company, and the training and development needed for these people to be able to contribute to the program and achieve tangible results, and also the relevant, I would say, motivation or recognition programs that will really help the engagement of these people and help them move forward with implementing the program and see the value out of this knowledge they're capturing or they're sharing with other peers in the company. Moving forward, we have come across some challenges when it comes to knowledge management, and one of the main challenges is really to implement the program in a consistent and unified way across big corporations, organizations. The principle is the same for the small ones, but when you implement a program on large corporations or even countries, you will need to implement it in a consistent and unified way that will show people how to implement and also will help the leaders of the organization or the company to monitor the program and monitor performance of the organization and see how are they moving forward and really design the right knowledge management KPIs, I would say, to be able to measure how are they moving forward. And these KPIs or key performance indicators could consist of different factors or statistics based on the business of the organizations or the company. Among these is really creating knowledge. How many knowledge assets of value to the business of that company or organizations, how many are we creating and how many are we reusing or applying in our work management or processes across the company, and do we really see the value out of this knowledge? Did it really result in some productivity increase, some value creation, and even eventually it will translate into dollar value? Because if we reuse that available knowledge built on experience and previous challenges that face that company or organization, they will be able really to make a very big shortcut in addressing the issues or problems that appear instantaneously. The last part is really the technology, I would say.
Yes.
Technology is really a great enabler. When we speak about implementing knowledge management programs, people, they always look for tools to help them implement the program.
Of course.
These tools they will use to either feed into a bigger, I would say, dashboard or a bigger repository of knowledge that people will feed into this repository, and end of the day, we will be able to see how are these people contributing to the program through using these tools to produce knowledge and reuse that knowledge. And the technology will help also organize big amount of data that we usually face in big corporations. It will use the necessary classification and tagging for the search engine eventually to reach or to achieve. So we need to look, in summary, really, we need to look at the governance, the culture, the process, and the technology, and look at it all really holistically, and we should be able to move into a sustainable knowledge management program.
Yes, and talking about technologies, we will talk more and more about it later in this session. Moving on to Mr. Nicholas Turner. When we are talking about knowledge management, we are talking about how it's important the importance of sharing knowledge in our communities. And this is what are you doing through Lindo Nobel Laureate. So can you tell us more? What are the benefits of sharing knowledge in your opinion?
Thank you. We do believe that one does not has to reinvent the wheel every time again. So if you build on the knowledge of, in our example, Nobel laureates, then you can get the knowledge they have achieved by listening, by learning with their peers, with their teachers during their lifetime as a scientist, and then they can hand over their knowledge, their experience to the next generation. And the young scientists we speak of in Lindo are 35 or younger, so there's really a generational gap between the Nobel laureates, almost at the end of their scientific career, and the young scientists. And the experience we see actively at every meeting really is that they are happily giving back or handing over what their experience is. If you want to stay in a career as a scientist, you really need to be kind of modest in living with failures, because many experiments are failures, and it's just a lucky moment or a situation where you are with your cooperators, with your team, where you find something new. But the way is really hard, and if you get this experience by a Nobel laureate that for decades had to deal with it, if you get that at the very beginning of your career, I think that can really help, because it's not always fun in a lab, and you really need to cope with that if you want to be a successful scientist.
Of course, that's true, but sometimes it's sharing knowledge itself, like some companies and organizations and communities, like, we want to keep our knowledge for ourselves. So, so that's lead me to a question to Mr. Ron Young, and about why we should not keep the knowledge for ourselves, why we should share it.
Yes,
and
knowledge.
how could that affect us positively?
Right. Many people around the world say, why should I share my knowledge? It's the result of my lifelong learnings and experiences. And actually, it's my value. And you want me to share my knowledge. And even if I wanted to share it, frankly, I don't have the time. I don't have enough time to do my work. And you want me to spend extra time sharing. That's the normal reaction, and it's a reasonable reaction. But actually, if you look at knowledge sharing closer, I would add to some of the benefits that have been mentioned. One of the benefits of sharing is you learn much faster. By sharing knowledge, you learn much faster. In the teaching profession, we all share our knowledge.
That's right.
Teachers are knowledge sharers. There's an old saying, a wise old saying in the teaching profession: you teach to learn. By teaching, you are actually validating that what you think you know is known. More importantly, not only does it validate, you get a lot more ideas and feedback and insights. If anybody here writes books or writes blogs, you know what I'm talking about. The feedback is invaluable. If you don't share, you run the risk that what you think you know is correct. And what you think you know is very, very limiting, because in a group of diverse people, by sharing your knowledge, it's an accelerated learning program for you. So actually, there's a paradox here. Sharing is selfish. You can learn much more yourself by sharing if you think, but that's not easy. It's counterintuitive to the mindset that we have in our business, which is I'm employed or I'm valued because of my knowledge, and I'm perhaps a little frightened if I share my knowledge, I may not be valued. Frankly, unless we keep learning at least as fast as our competitors or anyone else, we're in trouble. And the fastest way to learn is to share what you currently know. Less value on what you know today, more value on the process of continually learning faster. That's what I would say.
Yes. Please.
I would just like to Nobel Laureate that who mentioned that he said, well, the Lindau people, they believe they inviting me to teach the young scientists,
Yeah.
but in fact I'm coming because I get so much more out of it.
Absolutely.
It's exactly what you said.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. So, moving to Dr. Hamid, what do you think about that? Is teach to learn, and how you implement that in your organization?
I really believe in this because I practiced it myself, you know. At some point in time in my career, I used to instruct some of the, what we call engineering courses within Saudi Aramco. And I will just elaborate a little bit on what Ron has just said. You know, we know the content of those courses we used to teach by heart, because it's really the core business that we conduct within the company. But believe it, every time I go to those sessions and I instruct some of those courses, I learn new things. Either from discussions within the participants, or throughout some of my preparations that precede the course. You know, I need to read and prepare for delivering that course like 1 week ahead or so. So I always discover that I need to include this, I need to know this, oh, it's really good to know this, and at the same time, it's really a check for myself, you know, to see how the knowledge I have really is valued by others. So I really second Ron in that aspect. The other thing that I may also add, you know, for someone to share his or her knowledge, once you see the value of your knowledge translates really into tangible, you know, benefits for the company, or for really skipping, you know, long ways for the young generations really to learn and capture this knowledge in a faster way. You really feel esteemed and motivated, you know, about you know, your knowledge, and you really think that you contributed with something valuable. And we're not really speaking about IP or, you know, patents or of those things that could be protected, you know, other ways. We're speaking about the knowledge that you have acquired over the years, and you are trying to help the organizations, the young generations, really to learn and contribute to the organization or to the country.
Yes, that's really important. Mr. Ron, then that will lead us to how can we ensure applying reliable knowledge in a sustained way?
Can you repeat that? How can we
ensure applying reliable knowledge in a sustained way?
How can we ensure we're applying reliable knowledge in a sustainable way. You know, this adds to what we were just discussing in a way, because historically we've looked at learning content, which is reliable at the time, sort of, but the problem with learning content, reliable content, is that the world is changing too fast now. What you value as a piece of knowledge, what you value as content today, might be totally irrelevant in a few months or a few years at best. Therefore, to sustain it, what's even more important, I would say, is not just learning content, but learning how to best learn. Learning how to learn is what we should be teaching in our schools. At the moment, we teach content, don't we? We judge people on content. That's okay, but it's not that sustainable, simply because often when people come out of university, what they've learned is no longer relevant, let alone sustainable. We have to learn to adapt. We have to learn how to learn faster than ever before, I would say. That's one of the major contributions I think I have, how to have sustainable knowledge, use of application of knowledge, only by continually adapting and learning how to learn.
And I think technologies
and it's really technology, as was just said correctly, has enabled this process. We can now pump information around this planet at the speed of light. I can give you everything I've ever produced. PowerPoints, books, papers, I can send them to you in an email in seconds, but that doesn't mean you have the knowledge. It means you have the information. And you have to turn that information into knowledge yourself, and that takes time. And therefore, the critical thing is the learning process. And learning how to learn is the critical process we should be teaching in our schools and in our organizations. That will lead to more sustainable, valuable, relevant knowledge.
Definitely. Dr. Hamid, from your experience, what are the most critical factors in knowledge management that could ensure knowledge capture and application?
I always, when I speak about knowledge management, I reiterate that all factors are important. All factors integrate together when it comes to knowledge management. So if you want people in a certain organization to share knowledge, you need to tell them where are you moving. You need to have a desired state. People need to know how to get in that state or how to get to that destination. People need to be trained to do so. People are willing, but sometimes they need the right training or development to be able to contribute and do it. However, let me emphasize on what, from our experience, what we thought that people always ask about it. People ask us always, tell me how to do it. I have, a great amount of knowledge. I am ready to share, and I see the value, and I want to do that. If you have an organization or a corporation with over 50, 60, 70,000, even over 100,000 people, you need to have a very robust process, clear to everyone, enabled by certain tools and systems for them really to share their knowledge. And the journey starts by creating that knowledge, as Ron explained. You start with sometimes data. It's rough, unorganized. You need to make them organized in a certain way to become information, and then that information cannot be really knowledge unless really you learn how that information was developed, the learning process behind it. Then it becomes knowledge. Then you're creating knowledge.
Right.
You're creating knowledge. This knowledge needs to be implemented, or reused. Otherwise, no value out of this knowledge. If it's there, it's archived, nobody's using, nobody is accessing. So it doesn't really help a lot, It's really the first step, Once you create that knowledge and you have it ready, you need to make it easy for people to find. If I start searching, I face a problem. I am, from my side, I'm a field engineer, running operations, and I am faced with a problem, and I need immediately to look for, someone who really addressed similar problem or something close to what I'm facing. I need to find that knowledge quickly. If I don't find it, I will really get, frustrated, and I will stop really searching for that knowledge. So creating knowledge, making it accessible and searchable, discoverability of knowledge is a really key factor. Then after I implement that knowledge, did it really help me, Was it really valuable? Did it add value? Did I get something out of it? So all of these steps have to be considered. I need to create knowledge. I need to organize my knowledge in a certain way for people to access it, or for the search engine to access quickly, and then reuse that knowledge and achieve the desired objective of really having this valuable knowledge that really saved me time and effort and maybe dollar value end of the day. So it's really the how and the systems associated with it, and the recognition or the culture of knowledge that we may speak about, for people to know that their knowledge is really valuable and they need to share. So, you have the infrastructure ready for people. They need to see the value. They need to contribute. They need to find knowledge, and then they see the value out of that knowledge.
That's right. And that's lead me to a question for Mr. Nicholas. The Nobel Laureates, they really have a valuable, very valuable information and knowledge. So, what are the results that you can measure about exchanging knowledge, ideas, experience between the Nobel laureates and young scientists?
Well, I think I can add to what my colleagues just mentioned. Some of the knowledge that laureates or inventors or scientists have achieved, you can read on the internet or in books. But then there is something in addition, and I think I would call it soft skills or soft aspects of this knowledge that is added. And that's where you need personal interaction, where you need these meeting each other and exchanging experiences that adds to the facts. The facts are in the books, the facts are on internet, in papers. But how to set up an experiment, or how to stay engaged over a longer time of experiments to come up with a result, how to deal with failures, how to deal with the not believing of the right way by colleagues. We have some laureates that regularly in Lindo that for decades really were kind of made a fool of because nobody believed in them, and then finally they could prove right. So I really think one should not underestimate these soft skills and these things that really can only be handed over by personal interactions. I do believe in personal interactions.
Right, face-to-face interaction, personal interaction is really important to transfer knowledge and experiences. Now I would like to move on with creating a knowledge culture. And here I would like to ask about, Mr. Ron, how can we define knowledge culture?
I would start by saying that it's a culture that values knowledge highly. There's nothing new about knowledge. There's nothing actually new about traditional knowledge management. We've always managed our knowledge as best we could, and we almost take it for granted. That's not a knowledge culture. In an organization where we recognize the higher value of knowledge, the transformative value, as we talked earlier, knowledge is an asset, where we recognize that we can learn faster, I think that is more of a knowledge culture. However, it does require knowledge to be shared when it must be shared, and knowledge to be protected when it must be protected. It's not just a case of sharing, it's a case of knowing what knowledge should we benefit from sharing and what knowledge should we benefit by better protecting, and the risks accordingly. Mm-hmm. So a knowledge culture recognizes this. Normally, a leader is one of the characteristics of a knowledge leader, if you like, is somebody who can instill the desire to be more trusting, because when you look at knowledge management, fundamentally it's based on effective communications between people, and that is fundamentally based on a sufficient amount of trust. And therefore, developing a knowledge culture and developing a sufficient amount of trust is fundamental. Also, I would say a knowledge culture is where everybody recognizes that knowledge is of benefit to them. We've talked already about why should we share, what are the benefits of sharing. In an organization that has a successful knowledge culture, people want to do knowledge management for themselves. They don't treat it as extra to their work at all. They realize that this is something they want to do for themselves, regardless of whether the organization wants to do this or not. They want to do it for themselves. Instilling that sort of thinking, that's the sort of culture for a successful knowledge-driven organization.
Yes, and it's really important because some of the organizations maybe say, no, we don't have extra time to have
Exactly.
a KM program or extra. So, Dr. Hamid, to create a sustained knowledge culture, to create a sustained knowledge culture, what do we need from your experience? And why it's important to have a great knowledge culture in organization, in one's organization?
Today's morning I saw a figure, Ron gave. I will quote it to him, now, just referring to him, that he's saying that 70% of knowledge management is dependent on culture, and the remaining 30% on all other aspects, right?
Yeah.
So culture is really very, very important and very critical for any knowledge management program to succeed. If we complete, I would say, all other aspects, I'm speaking from at least our experience, once we tell people on what is our vision, where are we moving, and we communicate in the process on the how they will implement the knowledge management program, how it's going to be monitored. We provided the right enablers for them to contribute. Now, I would say what remains is really the soul of the knowledge management program, which is culture. If you don't have a soul, nothing's going to function. You have everything, but if you don't have, this culture across the organization, the program will not move and will not be sustainable. How? You need really very strong and continuous awareness programs that will go across the company, reminding them of the program and defining really the culture state where we really want to move to, and also having them realize the value of the knowledge they have. They also see that the time they invest in creating and sharing knowledge is considered really very valuable by the company, and it's really worth the investment. And this is something tangible that the organization or the company or appreciates very much. Then also taken, say, role models from some of the organization or the company or the corporation's leaders to come and really show to the employees or to the public of that organization that we are doing knowledge management creation and also sharing, and I am leading by example, and I really appreciate the value you are contributing as my employees or as my people to this program. And I am watching this program really very closely, and I am part of you. I am engaging with all organizations under my responsibility and seeing how are they contributing and instilling the right or the appropriate recognition and motivation programs for employee to be part of this knowledge management. People, they need to see some of the factors we mentioned previously, you know, that if you share, you're also at the same time learning. Also, if you see the value of your knowledge, you will be always motivated to share. If you are recognized, you know, on the moral, you know, aspects, you know, if you are recognized by your leaders for sharing your knowledge, it means that you have a valuable knowledge, and we appreciate all your efforts to teach the young generation or to share your knowledge. If I really establish the right development programs that really instill the program in all the business processes of that organization. You know, I need to teach, you know, the employees or the people on how to implement this program within their business processes across all organizations. If you design a program to bring these people and have them learn, how to do it and gain the hands-on experience, they will go back to their organizations and they will be really ambassadors to the program, and they will help promote also the culture and have people contribute to the program. And last point, I think from our experience played really, I would say, a great role in helping the culture, is really having a high-level committee represented by leaders from across the organizations. This committee is chartered to overlook the knowledge management program, to steer, their efforts, to be like a consultant on how the knowledge management program be designed, how to make it move forward. If you have this committee from across the organization, it will really help the program move forward, and they will be really having,
healthy,
conveying the message across the organization. Yes. So it's really the most important factor, if you will, the culture.
Mr. Nicholas, since decades, Nobel laureates and young scientists are exchanging knowledge. What are the main characteristics of the knowledge culture of these meetings? What are the main characteristics of the meetings that you held? And based off knowledge culture?
Well, as in the audience, the whole globe is participating. Of course, we are facing all kind of learnings by gender, religion, beliefs, one. So it's a really very diverse group of people in the room, so to say. But what we discover is that if you are on a certain, if you have a common language, and in science, unless you are, well, kind of strange-minded, you have these basic rules that work for all, and then culture doesn't really matters. I mean, I wouldn't say, well, in the scientific exchange, I would say it doesn't really matter.
Yes.
They are then really down to the facts, and then everything else is, it doesn't, religion or gender doesn't.
I just mean the environment of having a knowledge.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, then I misunderstood it. So we try to have it as open and as free as possible. So we, as I showed in the presentation, we have different formats to enable the discussion.
What makes them successful, these meetings?
Well, the eagerness of everybody attending to learn. And it's the intergenerational, the transgenerational learning. Everybody has to bring something at the table, be it the experience of a long life, be it the experience of doing research in one of the continents. I don't want to name one out of all, but all these different aspects that people bring to the table, and then together they change their experience, and 1 + 1 adds to 2. So everybody can bring some aspects, and together it's more at the table. So I really, that's, and the opening, the openness of all. They are eager to learn. They are curious. I think curiosity is one of the most important things, and some of the laureates always say, well, if you are starting your life as a child, you are curious, and we should not at school by teaching facts.
Yes.
I mean, there are some facts you need to know, but you should not kind of kill the curiosity by just putting knowledge of facts in it.
Yes.
So
you need to fuel it.
And curiosity
make it
is
grow.
the best thing to learn, and to learn more, and to
That's true.
combine things you heard and you listen to here and there, and then there's something new coming out of it.
And create this culture of sharing and exchanging knowledge. Is it easy, Mr. Ron, to create a culture, a knowledge culture? Is it easy to create a knowledge culture in one's organization? Is it simple, or it's hard to change?
I believe that human beings naturally want to share, and in our private lives, we do quite often share. We have sufficient trust, and we like to share in our families and things like that. In the organization, it's a different set of dynamics. There are politics involved. There are issues involved. There are competitive issues. There are all sorts of issues. So it's not easy as easy in an organization. But if we understand the fundamental principles around trust, around effective communication, cooperation, collaboration, if we start to embed those principles in an organization, it becomes more natural. The one thing I do know, you cannot force people to share anything. People will only share if they want to, naturally. Perhaps the rewards and recognition will help, but most knowledge workers or learners will say it's not just the money that incentivizes me, it's the learning opportunities that incentivize. It's the curiosity, it's those issues. So I don't want to pretend it's easy to create a knowledge sharing. It does depend on the values of the organization and the natural principles, but I think the challenge for us to create a knowledge culture is to understand the principles and try to put them into the daily workplace. That's what we
That's
need
true.
to do.
And about curiosity, I've been filming a program about space, and I met a lot of scientists, especially in the US at NASA. And the main thing that they were telling me about when seeking for knowledge is curiosity. When you have this within you, you will achieve the knowledge that you want, and you can share it efficiently. Going back to technology and the role of technology in addressing challenges in knowledge sustainability, Dr. Hamid, how could technology contribute in applying knowledge efficiently, in your opinion?
When you speak about technology, we need to see what are the challenges before we use technology. Among the challenges we've been facing is really the amount of data or information or eventually knowledge. If you're part of a big organization or corporation, the knowledge generated from all departments in that organization or corporation is really huge, if you will. It's something that previously in the old days, the customary, technologies and tools would not really cope with, because you have tons of knowledge you need to.
Sure.
Tons of.
This is technology sometimes,
Technology is really helping us now. Is really tons of knowledge you need to make available for people. So previously there were some limitations. Among other challenges is really the time consumed by people to prepare this knowledge and make it, in a certain way or in a certain format for people to access eventually. Another challenge is really looking for this knowledge from different pockets, you have big organizations or big systems. Every department or every group, they have their own knowledge. It's really in their systems. Previously, some of their drawers, if you will, so people don't have access to that knowledge. How technology is helping now? I think with the fourth industrial revolution, it's really going to play really a major role, or will really revamp the way we address the challenges of knowledge management. We have.
لو تقرب المايك شوي.
So,
If you can just bring it closer.
sorry.
Yes.
So with the fourth industrial revolution, it's really going to make a big change in the way we address knowledge. Be it in the amount of knowledge we can archive or we can make available to people. There are limitations, or almost none, if we speak about the fourth industrial revolution. We have what we call, or has coming into the picture, is artificial intelligence. We speak about artificial intelligence. There are, the normal, I would say, statistical learning that is based on the programming we used to learn in the old days or in the schools, and that's the customary way of doing things. But now the new part of artificial intelligence is really machine learning. Machine learning, you will be able really to without exaggeration, you will be replicating the human brain. You will be replicating the human brain, even the neural nodes or the network of nodes in the brain, they're really now working on it. So you will develop cognitive capabilities that will help the machines identify all images, all patterns, all information, collect them, link them together, make the necessary classifications, tagging, prediction. So it's going to make really life much easier when it comes to knowledge management, and I think we're moving forward with that. And at the same time, you know, if you have knowledge now in different systems within a company or within an organization, the new system or the machine learning will be able really to identify or find that knowledge wherever it is and link it together, and also do some analysis for you that this source of knowledge is coming from that department, from that organization, and that knowledge is coming from different sector. So you will be able really to differentiate and make the necessary analysis and make use of that knowledge. The applications that are you know, coming into the service now, I'm sure that many of you have heard about the chatbot. It's used in many applications, and now it's probably the first step of machine learning. We have the neural networks. It's really I would say the preliminary, step of machine learning, that you will be able to learn or make the machine learns certain knowledge organized in a certain way, and eventually this machine will be able to answer you if you ask any question about that content. You choose that content, be it, you know, books, you know, or even something within the organizations, you know, standards, specifications, procedures, manuals, and you know, work closely with the machine to learn that content. Eventually, you don't need to have someone, you know, to answer you. You will be interacting with the machine, and there will be also a testing period where that machine will work with a subject matter expert and will be interacting. So it will learn even some of the questions and answers, and once it reaches really at a certain maturity, it will be able really to communicate with you as an end user, and you can speak to that machine, ask any question, and it will be able to answer, to provide the answers immediately. The advanced, you know, way of availing knowledge is really what we call deep learning. It's part of the machine learning, and that's really where the human brain will be replicated, and it will be able to connect all information to make the analysis, identify patterns, images, and make the necessary, I would say, analysis, extrapolation, prediction,
Yes.
and classification.
Definitely. We are living in the era of AI, artificial intelligence, and when we talk about it, I think many people feel a little bit scared because maybe they will steal our jobs, the robots. But I think it's creating a lot of opportunities for organizations and for us. Talking about the artificial intelligence, Mr. Ron, in your opinion, how it could help us?
Artificial intelligence.
In KM, yes.
You know, this morning I was talking about the ISO First International Standard for Knowledge Management, which is based on its people. People have knowledge in their heads. We're now in the era of machine intelligence, artificial intelligence. And I'm now currently working on a team which is the next standard for the ethical design of intelligent automated systems, because we're all concerned, as you've just expressed, that there is some ethical design of these machines. We talked a short while ago about learning how to learn. We talked about learning faster. Machines learn fast. Machines learn exponentially. Some people say today we're in the era of transhuman, where we've crossed this critical point where machines now can learn faster in the future than humans can. Well, I'm not sure that machines will be able to be curious yet, what we have to do, it's not a either or, it's not the machines or us. What we need to do is, in my opinion, and in many people's opinion, how can we collaborate? How can human intelligence and machine intelligence collaborate to benefit? Machines do some things much, much better than human beings. Machines remember much better than I do. Machines will share without hesitation if you want
They
them
have
to.
huge memories.
But we need to focus, and I go back to even our curriculums at school, we need to focus on those skills that are human. You know, the creativity skills, the curiosity skills, those sort of skills that machines cannot, at least yet, emulate. Okay. And the two need to work together hand in hand. But that's why I encourage the standard on ethical design, because it's fundamental to get those principles, ethical principles of automated intelligent systems, in my opinion.
It is. Talking about technologies, we would like to talk about Mr. Nicholas. You know, we have communication technologies nowadays, and you mentioned face-to-face and personal interaction. It's really the key in knowledge transfer. But what about communication technologies? Does this technology help your organization in transferring knowledge more and more?
Yes, definitely yes, and I think we would close our eyes about the development if we would say no. And I mentioned the Mediathek, where you can see lots of lectures of former Nobel laureates during the last 100 years of science. But it's always the content, the technology and the transfer by technology. You can transfer what has been made or discovered by humans. I think one aspect that one should add is empathy. Empathy.
Oh, absolutely, empathy. Yeah.
Machines will work, they will work good.
Yes, agreed.
I doubt that they will be emphatic. So in a human interaction or in a meeting, you always work with empathy and curiosity, and that's something technology cannot compete with, I would say. I mean, I might be a bit old-fashioned, but still I believe in it. So technology helps us in many ways, and well, just imagine, and that's of course not science technology, imagine people coming from remote places in the world to this remote place in Germany to meet. But then it's interaction and it's humanity that brings them together and adds. I think technology will help with many facts and figures, and then the humans will still be needed to add to it. And that helps, and that gives us hope for the future, I think.
Definitely.
And if I could just add that you've reminded me about learning. People learn faster when they're having fun, actually, or rather when it's an enjoyable environment to work in. And I think that fun dimension is also something we should focus on.
Definitely.
Technology can help for the environment to learn and all that. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I think we have like less than 10 minutes remain. It's for the Q&A session. If our audience would like to have some question. 5 minutes. Okay, please. The mic, please. The mic.
Mic, please.
Yes. One.
Yes,
the lady in the last
for the presentation.
On the right.
We benefited from all the discussion. It's very important for knowledge management and utilization. And I have a conceptual aspect question, is that we need first to sustain knowledge in order to use it in several aspects like decision making, development, and any others. So sustainability of knowledge is a very important concept, I think, that we have to cover. And then how we use this sustainable knowledge to support sustainable development or the future and so on, and continuous growth. This is another aspect that was not you didn't respond to it up till now. But if you agree with this concept, please answer me. Thank you very much.
Indeed. You're absolutely right. We can't have sustainable development if we don't have sustainable knowledge. And therefore, we look to the management of that knowledge. And the key issue today in many organizations is the retention of critical knowledge, either gig economy or high mobility of workforce or critical knowledge disappearing with people retiring. This is all contributing to sustaining the critical knowledge that we need to transfer, and has been said earlier. I don't know all the answers. All I do know is the knowledge management methodologies enable us to do this much better collectively and systematically than we've ever done before. And we need to do a lot more of it. And we need to focus far more on sustainable knowledge and sustainable development. Absolutely agree with you.
Okay, can we have one more? Okay. I'm afraid to say that our session for today is finished. I think you...
Amira,
please.
if I kindly ask you one more question from...
please.
One more question, please.
We can't say no to Dr. Hamid.
Please.
Giving me the chance. Question that I have in one sentence about the culture, and I think the moderator Amira mentioned a good question about the culture, and you elaborated more. I would like from every presenter one action you want to do to change the culture in your organization. I'm not asking for a detail. One action, one recommendation to do to impact the culture.
So, one recommendation for a better knowledge culture and better knowledge environment in your organization. Let's start with you, Mr. Ron.
One.
One.
Can I think about that a little bit? Okay, I can't think about it a little bit. I would say an effective communication plan that clearly shows what knowledge needs to be communicated, by whom, when, what media you're using, how frequently. Just a solid communication plan will do much towards building trust, and that will lead to the knowledge culture probably faster than, but it's a mixture of a lot of things. But my one is communication plan, effective communication plan.
All of this is one sentence?
Huh?
This is all one sentence?
That's one sentence of mine.
What about you, Dr. Hamid?
I would say really having a very clear vision and engagement from employees all the way to the top management.
Okay. Mr. Nicholas?
And I would say put them at the table and take off the mobiles for certain periods of time.
Great.
So that they really speak to each other.
I would like to have one last question from the lady right there. So if you can just...
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. A couple of questions, one short one to Mr. Nicholas. Do you also have anything for the non-sciences, as in physical sciences, so for the social sciences, for the humanities, etc.?
Can you repeat your question, please? And
slowly.
Yes.
Do you have any programs for the non-physical sciences, so social sciences, humanities? That's a simple question. Can I also ask the other question?
Unfortunately, no,
Okay.
because we are limited to the Nobel Prize disciplines,
Okay.
and it's chemistry, physics, medicine, and economics. And you know, they have one thing in common: 1 + 1 is 2. It makes it much easier if you have a global community interacting than the other disciplines with different bases.
okay.
Thank you. My question to Mr. Ron, you know the stuff you were talking about, learning to learn, and what the difference between knowledge as a resource and knowledge as a transformative asset. Now, my background is in university education, so I'm an academic. I've taught in many jurisdictions. I think traditionally universities were supposed to do that, and they did that. But now more and more, I feel that this method of learning, or the fact that, learning to, having knowledge as an asset, being able to have knowledge as an asset, I think has moved on to providers outside of higher education more and more and more. So my very small two questions is there anything specifically that universities need to do more of, or can they do more of, to actually get back to creating asset, knowledge as an asset, rather than knowledge as an information or knowledge as a resource?
Okay, thank you for your question.
That's the question. Thanks.
Yeah.
A very, very good question, very powerful question. Universities traditionally are the greatest knowledge asset we have. They're knowledge engines. Their whole culture is learning cultures and everything like that. I come from Cambridge, and sometimes I get very frustrated because we have some wonderful universities, but we suffer from big business as well. We suffer from financial considerations, and I think that's taken us away from some of the real desires to treat knowledge as an asset. That has to be balanced these days with treating it as a product to sell sometimes. Yes. And I say that with respect.
Thank you very much. That was an extremely interesting session with much food for thought. So thank you, Dr. Hamad, Mr. Young, and Mr. Turner for taking part in this session. Thank you very much. Thank you.
نشكر مديرة الجلسة أميرة. شكرا لك.
Thank you, Amira, the moderator, and thank you to all your guests for this rich session. Our honorable guests,